Have you ever driven somewhere familiar and arrived with no memory of the actual drive? Not because anything was wrong with you, but because you were somewhere else entirely, replaying a conversation, rehearsing an argument you'll probably never have, worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. You were physically present and mentally absent, and if you think about it honestly, that gap between where your body is and where your mind is might be where you spend most of your life. The Stoics had a word for the opposite of that state. They called it prososche, a kind of continuous attention to the present moment, to your own thoughts as they arise, to what you are actually doing right now instead of the story you are telling yourself about it. And when Marcus Aurelius sat down each night to write what we now call meditations, he was not writing a philosophy book for future generations. He was performing an exercise in waking himself back up. He knew that even an emperor with total control over an empire could still lose total control over his own attention. Here is a question worth sitting with before we go further. When was the last time you were doing something and actually knew you were doing it, instead of running on autopilot while your mind was somewhere in the past or the future? Answer that honestly in the comments, because most people cannot remember. And that inability is the entire problem this video is about. Psychologists have a term for this too: mind wandering. Researchers Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert at Harvard used an experience sampling method, pinging people randomly throughout their day and asking what they were doing and where their mind actually was. Their findings, published in Science, showed that people's minds wandered from the present task nearly half the time they were tracked. And critically, people were measurably less happy when their minds had wandered than when they were focused on what they were actually doing, even when the task itself was unpleasant. Being present, in other words, beat being lost in thought almost every single time, regardless of what the present moment contained. That is strange when you think about it. You would expect daydreaming about something better than your current situation to feel good. But the mind does not wander toward pleasant fantasies as often as you would hope. It wanders toward worry, toward rehearsal, toward old wounds. Left unsupervised, attention drifts toward threat, not toward peace. This is not a character flaw. It is what an unmanaged mind does by default, because evolution built us to scan for danger and unresolved problems, not to rest in contentment. This is exactly what the Stoics were responding to, centuries before neuroscience had the tools to measure it. Epictetus made a distinction that sounds simple, but is genuinely difficult to live by. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Our judgments, our attention, our responses, these are ours. Everything else, other people's opinions, the past, outcomes we cannot control, is not. Sleepwalking, in the Stoic sense, is not laziness. It is living as though your attention belongs to whatever grabs it, instead of treating it as the one resource that is actually yours to direct. Think about someone scrolling through their phone at a dinner table, physically there with people they love, mentally somewhere else entirely. They're absorbing outrage or comparison or noise that will not matter in a week. Nobody chose that moment consciously. It just happened, the way most moments just happen, because attention left unclaimed gets claimed by something else. The Stoic response was never about suppressing thought or forcing constant bliss. It was about noticing. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to the same idea across his private writings, that the present moment is the only thing anyone actually possesses, and that a person who has truly grasped this loses nothing when life ends, because they were never living anywhere except now. That is not resignation, it is precision. It means the quality of your life is not measured in years, but in how many of your actual moments you were present enough to live. So the uncomfortable realization is this: waking up is not a single dramatic event. It is not an enlightenment you stumble into once and keep forever. It is 1,000 small returns, catching your mind mid-drift and gently bringing it back, over and over, for the rest of your life. The Stoics were not claiming to have solved this. They were just more honest about how often they failed at it and how much that failure mattered. Most people are not asleep because something is wrong with them. They are asleep because no one taught them that attention is a choice made moment by moment, not a background hum you can ignore. If this made you think differently about where your mind actually lives, let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you want more of this.